Hello there, outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey here today. We on the Outliers Edge Roundtable have assembled three amazing outliers who are here and have lived an incredible life and are willing to share their take, their experiences, and honestly, where they're heading to next for all of us to continue to up level ourselves. Let's give us a chance to get to know each of these outliers here. And I want to say thank you to all three of you for being here. All right. Kathy, let's start off with you. Let's get a chance to I want outliers to get a chance to get to know you. So would you mind sharing more about you and the game you're currently playing?
Okay. I am Kathy O'Connell, and my business is Iranian Abilities. I am a mental health counselor who works with people who have been marginalized in the dating world. And in particular, my experiences with people with disabilities who have really been marginalized when it comes into being viewed as dating and relationship partners. And what I help people with is building the skills for dating and relationships. But to answer your question, the game I'm playing is up leveling people with disabilities to be more readily seen by society as the incredible dating and relationship partners they are.
Thank you so much, Kathy. It resonates with me so deeply here right now. But like that element, like being seen. It's something that keeps running through in many different ways. And I'm glad you do the work that you do and you choose to play the way that you do. Thank you for being here, Kathy. I'm excited for the conversation. Rebecca, let's get to know you. Do you mind sharing more about you and the game you're currently playing?
Not at all. Linking with Kathy, my name's Rebecca O'Rourke, and I am in the business of relating, I guess, because my area of work and where I spend a lot of years is how we actually get along in groups and teams. So the dynamics, how we both influence other people and are influenced by and what we can't always see because we can be like fish swimming around with humans and can't see the water we're in. So yeah, I've been at that, and I love working in the group or team environment, and working with shifting the whole group to make progress, basically.
This is really fantastic. And so if I'm getting you right, your work is like rooted in the group and team context. Is that correct?
That's right. So
Yeah.
how we work with other humans in the here and now, like what's
Yeah.
happening now in our relating. Yeah.
This is A, we're gonna have a lot of fun. B, I think that there's something in here around the unique value of a group experience. It's part of why, like, normally I would do a one-on-one like podcast conversation, but I'm like, there's
Mm.
something else that is available to us because the four of us are all in this conversation. So I'm
Mm.
excited to see how that like comes and plays in. And Rebecca, don't feel free to not hold back on bringing all that related. This goes out to all of us, bringing all that out to the conversation here. There's a lot of room for us all to shine. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Oliver, we'd love to get to know you. Do you mind sharing more about you and the game you're playing?
Hello, welcome. So, yeah, the game I'm playing and where I'm at, I'm, yeah, basically searching for myself for uh, the major part of my grown adult life. And the whole thing fell apart for me when my daughter was born 14 years ago. My engineering title and all these nice things, they just fell all apart and they're still not put back together 14 years later. The game I'm playing is having my podcast, that's the only thing which has been constant since 2019. And yeah, I've been reaching out to people around the world, from all the continents so far, and talk to them about, it started with creativity and innovation to be, how to grow that. And it came more into basically being good with yourself, like self-improvement, self-growth. That's where basically the core lies of being truly innovative and creative, when you know who you are and you trust yourself. So it's kind of like, so the game I'm playing is floating in this in-between world, of spirituality, of business, of creativity, of self-finding, and trying to find these dream catchers, these people which actually caught the dreams they had, to be actually a model for the people which don't believe they can go after their dreams, and kind of bridge that with my podcast and earning money. Yeah, that's still my search.
Well, you're a good. Firstly, thank you for being here. You're in good company here because you're around people who figured it out in different ways. So or have found some things that have worked for them. I think that's probably it. I like to make that distinction here because this is not a space where go do X, Y, and Z. Instead, Outliers, we're here to help you see how Kathy, Rebecca, and Oliver are all navigating their journey and figuring out what works for them. Right. So, Kathy, let's start off with you. Actually, let me do this. So, I realize if I go down this route, I'm going to accidentally go have each of us speak one at a time in a very linear fashion. So instead, I'm going to put in. I'll just toss a question into the mix, and then whoever feels it can maybe pick it up here. Uh, I am I'm actually really curious about the unique edge that each of you have chosen to do. Right. I get that you could have put your energies and efforts into a lot of different things, and yet you've chosen the work that you've done now. Right. I'm curious, what's behind it? What was your why for getting into the work that you do? Why don't we start off with that? Does anyone feel called to answer that one?
I would love to
All
answer
right,
that.
Kathy, take it. Yeah, please
Okay.
start us off.
So, as I mentioned, I'm a mental health and counselor. I have worked much of my career with people with disabilities. And when I began my career nearly 30 years ago, people would say to me, I would love to meet someone. I would love to have a companion, but I have a disability. And they usually said something like, who would go out with me? And that would break my heart. And at the same time, I, who had cerebral palsy, was then trying to date. And it was not going great. And I ran into a lot of my own challenges. Long story, but I kept working on myself, and I kept holding this vision of having a great relationship. Then came the most awkward day in my life, where I finally, after 20 years, worked up the courage near the end of the date to say, so, how are you doing with me having a disability? And big tears began rolling down his face. And he goes, I am so uncomfortable. And at that moment, I wanted to crawl under the table. I was ready to never date again. It was too hard, too painful. But remember, I had said I worked on myself. So I took a deep breath and said, well, I have a disability that I will have for life. And this is what would make me a good partner. Long story short, we began dating, and I said back up. So he said, "Well, I don't know." And then I said, "Okay, you go think about it. Call me if you want to." And the next night he emailed me and said, "You know what? I don't know about the whole disability thing, but you're so confident in who you are. I need to get to know you." We began dating. Every day I would go, "So how are you doing with me?" He would go, "Oh, I'm not sure." And then say, "So what are you doing next weekend?" And that went on. 2 years later, we got married. We've been married 15 years. What that gave me my not only my personal life, but my professional life of trying to help people, and not just some people with disabilities, but anyone who has felt marginalized in dating, to recognize that all the answers are within them of what makes them a great partner.
Thanks for that, Kathy. I'm pulling out some things, a lot of different things in this already. One of them is just like that element of like just honesty, like putting out the honest question and then being able to like get the honest response. And then you didn't like melt. You're like, okay. And you continue to leave that door open. So I'm hearing that. And then I'm also hearing this element of like one step at a time. It's like one date at a time that kept compounding a little bit over a little bit. I want to kind of pull that out because I think a lot of times outliers we listen to it and we're like, I can't see how I'm going to do step 4,325. So there's no reason to even taking step one. And I really felt that here when I was hearing you, Kathy. Thank you for that here. Let's open it up for anyone else. What else do you have? Rebecca, Oliver, any of you want to either comment on anything Kathy said or let us know more about your why with the work that you do? Rebecca, why don't we go to you and then we'll go to Oliver on this.
Okay, I think Oliver was almost ready. I was thinking about the whole notion of asking the question. And I guess what I really try to work with people on is that they can stay connected with the experience they're having when they're in a group. And even just like Kathy asked a question, just to work with one's own, our own observations. Like right now, what am I seeing? What am I thinking as a result? And what led me to really want to work with people's experience in the collective is that I, very early on in my working life, I had big jobs where I had a lot of people reporting to me and things were pretty wild in different countries. I was working across internationally, etc. And I thought people were crazy. People were crazy. And you had those moments where you had a sweet spot where everyone seemed to have some sort of alignment and understanding, and we'd make great progress, and other times where it was a spectacular failure. And I wanted to understand, how you could have the sweet spot moments more often. And also I wanted to feel free everywhere I went. I wanted to feel free. I didn't want to feel restricted by the groups and collective people that I found myself in. So it was an internal, external journey, if you will. Understanding, the psychology of unconscious processes and what happens when people get together, but also understanding my own part in what was happening.
And Oliver, I'd love to hear from you too as well. Would you mind sharing a bit for you?
There we go. So I found the unmute button. That's why it took so long before. Yeah. So as I already shared a bit before, the whole deconstruction and falling apart of the life at the age of 33, the whole thing just collapsing and feeling not belonging. I don't think I've mentioned I'm Swiss living in Denmark. My ex-wife is Romanian, and I have an international podcast. So I'm a bit probably an outlier in the way of thinking and connecting. It apparently it's very easy for me to just connect with people, but it's hard for me to kind of monetize and do stuff. So I tend to help people. So when everything fell apart, I couldn't understand why. Like I have this engineering title. I speak several languages, being in Denmark, English, German, understanding these differences. And I worked for AMG as a partner. So that's around the corner. Mercedes is very close to where I grew up, but I couldn't understand cultural differences. I moved to another company and was fired after 2 months. And there we had an international communication class. And this is stuck in me since then, because I couldn't understand what was not working for me. I think that's a bit going like for Rebecca. I didn't understand, like, why do people not understand me in Denmark? Why do I not understand them? As a Swiss going to Denmark, you have the feeling it's very similar in culture, size-wise, etc. It's just Germany is in between for the international listeners here, right? From Switzerland, you pass Germany, you get to Denmark, and then you think like it's a social country, it's taking care of you, right? If you're unemployed, you will not end up the street in neither of the countries. So it's kind of like seemingly the same, but the undercurrents are quite different. The way people function, the way the people work, it's so different. And so I can understand if you work internationally, you can feel, and my network is international now, and it's normal for me. So, and the podcast probably just built up naturally. And I think it was not my decisions, basically. The decisions are taken for me by another. I'm not really Christian believing. I know there's more. I've always believed in the Holy Stone, to just name it. And whatever I try to do, and that doesn't seem to work, I feel it's kind of like because it's not my path. And as I said, like the podcast was the constant besides being a father for the last 6 years now. And probably something else would come after a year or two. And it's kind of very frustrating for me, but it's the path of, like when you go through the spiritual different teachings, Asian or Christianity or whatever it is, it's like the pain is making it to grow, right? And understand and acceptance and self-love and self-acceptance, which is reflecting on the outside world, how people communicate with you and how the world communicates back to you. So it's kind of like the motivation as well. So I'm very curious. So the podcast guests I have a lot of different backgrounds. It's going into mysticism, spirituality, business growth, business innovators, Lego, the Lego Play series, which is about creativity and finding out better ways. And then I had a near-death experience as podcast after that. Then I had someone talking about Viking lore. So it's my curiosity, which is driven by my inner search for self and acceptance and understanding what is my path in life. And looking back into my life, my path in life is not to fit in. Sounds hard. I'm an outlier. I wanted to be a designer, but it was too much belly feeling. So I thought like engineering is good, but that was too much in the head. So I kind of wanted to combine the design and the engineering. And now I'm kind of combining the material world view with the spiritual world view and all these kind of things. And I'm feeling always like in between. It's very, very frictional. And for me, it's learning to let go of expectations and increase my communication skills. That's also probably the podcast. Learn to listen more and ask questions instead of speaking and talking. So that's kind of like the path I had I hope that's summarizing it enough for the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all good here. And I appreciate it. I'm glad Outliers get a chance to hear a little bit about each of you and a bit of the story of what led you here. Um, I want to get a chance to see some of like how you continue to evolve over time, right? And so one of the things for me that I get curious about with people is um, I'll bring this question in first. Would you mind speaking to something here with each of you around like an edge, something that you're doing right now that is taking you out of your comfort zone as you are creating here. I think I'd love to bring that into the space, and then let's go ahead and keep playing with that. Rebecca, I'm seeing like big acknowledgement from you, so I'm just really drawn to like start with you, and then I'll keep myself muted. You can just unmute everyone else afterwards, and we'll just see where the conversation goes from there.
Well, very briefly, I've had 25 years of multidisciplinary integrating, like Oliver was talking about, different, spiritual, psychological, emotional work with myself and people I work with, including depth work, so dreams, collective dreaming, the whole thing, okay? So, and I did I call it a mainstream PhD in social identity. So, I've had the mainstream and the more left or edgy work and then integrating it. But in a way, I kept it a little bit separate. So I have a corporate client. I wouldn't really talk so much about or sort of head into, say, their beliefs or what may have been happening for them at a soul level in their minds. However, this year I'm putting on a public program, which I've done for my whole career, whereby I offer a public program to people at a reasonable rate, and we're integrating. So it's all of that. It's psycho-spiritual astrology, psychology, constellations, the whole thing. And I'm finally bringing it home in the UK. It's going to happen in September. And the other thing that I'm doing is I'm working with a tech group in directing a project to be able to work with teams in real time like this. So imagine I was in the room, how would I work with this if we were a team? And that's an edge for me, to integrate the tech to keep the human element very much alive, because digital conditions, I think, are very challenging for all of us. So how do we not shy away from that, but really look at how do we integrate this in a way that serves humanity in a useful way? So they are edges for me that I'm currently working on in 25. Yeah. Good question.
Oh, yeah. Good answer. I can definitely see where that's very pushy. For me, while you were speaking, I remembered interviewing a personal coach for high performing CEOs. So
Yeah.
I knew she had like some high profile people she coached, which had like 5,000-10,000 employees underneath. So her coaching influenced the life of several people. And in the preparation for the podcast, I figured out she had some spiritual tendencies. And yet in the interview, I shortened the questions not to expose her to kind of like her spiritual side. And when we were done, she asked me what she did wrong, because she could feel the direction or the question or the energy shifted. And that was a big, aha moment, like a friction, a moment of growth, to realize, do not mentally try to control the questions that come to me in whatever way, right? It's like a thought I have or something while I talk to the people. I don't know how Niiamah
Niiamah. Yeah, we're good. Now keep going, Oliver.
Niiamah has. So that was like a big aha moment for me, to let go the question that come from me and don't try to move it around. And so how I'm continuously growing and challenging myself is basically I go out for all these yeah, I'm just open to talk to different people with different opinions. But the biggest growth and friction for myself is in my private life and the people around me, which know me to communicate exactly these human, spiritual, mystical, material, work related things and the whole thing, how the world runs at the moment, the views I have, and try to accept and, accept and let go the things you cannot change or control, right? These are kind of the feedbacks you get, and only focus on the things you can change. And Michael Jackson, Start with the Man in the Mirror, his song, right? So it's like these are like the frictions and where I push myself to grow. And the universe, God, the matrix, whatever we believe in, is kind of pushing that to me more and more and more. Sometimes feels daily. So it's kind of the growth and the uncomfortability of earning money for what I know, basically, and not really knowing how to implement that. That's a big friction for me, for growth.
I appreciate this here, Kathy. I saw you. I want to bring you in. You brought in the money elements of this here, Oliver, a couple times. So like we might want to go play with that because I think that like you're actually speaking on behalf of on behalf of many outliers that are listening, and you have two people here who've been doing this work for decades. So I'm like it might be really fun to just go play down that path. Kathy, like you wanted to say something first. Let's go down there first, and then let's bring in some money.
Well, on that note, part of what I would say is I believe my whole career I've been on the edge of, I am someone who has a business doing personal growth, coaching, mental health with people with disabilities. And that is not common that we have a business supporting people who are traditionally served and not empowered to be consumers and to choose the businesses that can help people with disabilities buy rather than be served. If that makes sense. That my edge has been creating those products and services that people need but cannot get in typical service industries, at least here in the United States.
So let's keep playing with this here because Kathy, like one of the things I got from there was, if I'm getting you right, there's an element where it's like the people you serve are used to being served, but they're not like what was coming to me was almost like, are they used to paying for it themselves? One, yeah, go ahead. What yeah, bridge that
Yeah,
gap.
they haven't been empowered to be consumers. They're served, but they're not empowered to be consumers. If that makes sense.
Do you mind if I share what sense that makes for me, and maybe we can get a feel from everyone on this here, right?
Yes.
So the sensations I have as you say this, I'm gonna like really look into what you said if it makes sense. The sensations that come from me, I feel a little flutter in like my chest when you say that, um, for two reasons. One, I think the biggest thing is I love how you give the power back to people. And this thing that like a lot of us might think, oh, I don't want to come off as salesy, or why would they want to pay me, or so on and so forth. You're looking at this from a whole different perspective and saying, hold on, wait a minute. Like you too should be empowered to make a choice of what you want. Like this is available to you. I think that's a really counterintuitive way of looking at it. And I can imagine how that would change the conversations you have when you're like stepping into the place of I'm here to empower you as a consumer rather than to assume that like this is outside of you.
Right. right, it gives the people control and really takes them out of the victim mentality by saying, you know what, I want this for myself. So how can I go about and get these resources for myself? That, and again, not to get too much in the weeds about that typical services, say delivered by Medicaid, won't typically provide.
Yeah, I'm gonna open this up here because I want to bring us in on this because one of the things I love about this is the seamlessness of this, Kathy, right? Because you say that like you're working with them in personal coaching, you're working with them on their mindset, you're working on in relationships, right? And underneath it here, you're like, but I'm empowering you overall. I want you to go for the things that you want.
Right.
And I can see how that would be like a very natural thing where it's like, if you want a relationship, let's go get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always a fan when things are when it looks like something's happening on the surface and it's like, no, you're getting served many levels underneath it. Rebecca, Oliver, curious what's coming up for you around any of this.
I was thinking about money and the whole, I mean, we can look at money in 100 different ways, obviously, but one of the things that I've felt has really worked for myself and my clients is to be able to work with it as an energy that's exchanged. And if we can have a conversation about at the outset or when I'm working with a group or as we get like what do we actually think the exchange is here? We're already surfacing consciousness around what we may or may not be up to. And like Kathy, I think that really empowers people to own what they think they're both giving and receiving. And that can change over time. So I work very hard at getting clear for myself and for people I'm working with. What's the exchange? What's happening here? Like tonight I'm thinking about this is a very interesting exchange to show up and be present and to learn and be with people I've never met before. Fantastically interesting. And I feel like I'm receiving something in that process. But not that we've talked about it, but I'm with the exchange and the energy that's present.
I appreciate that. Like, I'm going to come to you in just a bit, Oliver. I am like, I want to see if you have a follow-up question for Rebecca, but I'm curious about like how you set up that conversation about the exchange, right? Like I get the feel of it all. Like when you're in a conversation, how do you actually bring this up to specifically around like the money side of it too?
Okay, so it would depend. Okay, you want me to work with 4 founders who are, 2 million in with their seed funders, and what are you hoping that we will achieve? Bang, bang, bang. Okay, so if I can work with you and we can do that in 6 months, what's that worth?
Thank you, Rebecca. I like to make these things real as we go along and to give us that kind of experience.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I loved about that too, Rebecca, was like um, how natural that was, right? It was like natural for you, but also just like in the actual conversation around it.
That's right, Nima, that's right. Yeah, it's just a conversation. That's
Ah,
right.
so
Yeah.
Oliver, like come on in. What do you think and what do you want to bring in?
My head is, as usual, exploding with ideas and thoughts. But one thing, yeah, what Rebecca said, I didn't know what to expect, really. I listened to a few podcast episodes and went through the whole process, and I got a bit confused with all the invites. But I was like, okay, let's just go for it. It's an exchange. I don't expect anything, right? It's an energy exchange, and I totally agree with money. And the thing is, intellectually, I know so much. Also, money is just exchange for service. It's energy exchange. You don't want to be the stone in between where the money has to divert. You want to be the tunnel where you create more and you make it the shortcut so to serve people. I completely understand it. So there's like a disconnect for me there. I'm surviving. Normally, money comes when it needs to come. Unfortunately, it's very stressful sometimes, especially in December when my energy is low. But I totally agree with the exchange. And just now with my friend from Botswana, I just talked before and I told him, hey, we have to stop. I have a podcast. And I actually talked exactly about that. Business opportunities for my yoga group, not mine, but where I'm part of. And then asking the different business owners which do different things, if it's jewelry or energy healing or classes or clothes or whatever, and see if I can help them in a way. And then I also exchange with him, like, what would it, ideas could be, what would it worth to have this achievement? What would I get for that? So I'm not getting paid because that's kind of like a group, a family, but I would get paid for the achievement, like the exchange. If we achieve that, what would it worth? Would it be worth for you? Right. And so on. I had to laugh because I just an hour ago shared that with a friend. So I totally agree on that. So it's not like it's just like energetically something is missing, some kind of, you can call it a trauma, you can call it an energy block, you could call a belief, subconscious mindset, and so on and so forth for me, what it's about money.
Yeah, like, and I'm sure that there's more to it, but like what I'm also hearing from you is like you have found ways to find like an exchange for you, right? And it like it's you're like, I want to, your conditions are, let me go get the result, and then once the result comes in, we'll have the exchange in there. And so that, like, and some other people are like, pay me up front and no guarantees, no nothing, and we'll just see where it is, right? But like there's it's we get to play with this, we get to choose with this, and it, like, there's a component of here as I'm just listening where I'm just like, oh, well, it looks like you're more open than than you're letting yourself, like, than you may be giving yourself credit here. And so I want to put that in. We're gonna probably have like one more. It's probably gonna be like the last question in here. So I want to just leave it open for you. So, Kathy, Rebecca, Oliver, like, what else is coming up for you all when it comes to showing up as you are, the conversation around money, anything that's shown up in this conversation so far? I want to just give room for a little bit more organic speech, and then we'll wrap up for today.
Yeah, what's coming up when you said showing up for who you are, it can be very painful. And I felt like 100 interviews on my podcast, I think, or more. And there were a few people which also shared when they stepped into their authentic self, whatever that is, in their true self, or they followed the path they want to go. And I really want to reach out to that personal coach again and talk to her after, it's 4 years ago or 5. They said they lost everyone. Some of them lost families and everything. So can be very painful. But you find new friends which are more aligned with you, who you are. So you don't have to be another person. You can truly speak, act, and be yourself from within, instead of tiptoeing. Like, can I say this? Can I dress like that? Can I act like this? Right. So it's like walking your path, finding who you are, and really present yourself. And I think that's also working for business. At least the ones I know which have successful businesses, they said it's because they're themselves. If it's a one-man show or something like that. But on the way, you can lose a lot of friends and family, and it can feel very hard. And I think that's part of the growth of self-acceptance and love. And my yoga teacher always says, you don't want to be Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, or Jesus if they really lived, because they were poor. They were beggars helping people. They didn't have big houses and a lot of money, right? So not that we all should be there, right? But it can be hard at times. But listen to your inner voice, belly feeling, heart, whatever it is for you.
Thank you, Oliver. Rebecca, Kathy, we're about to wrap up here, but is there any final thought you want to put into this space here for any outliers that are listening?
I just simply piggyback on what Oliver said about showing up as your authentic self, and that's really at the heart of what I do with my work with people, again, who have been marginalized, who have been told they don't fit into a particular mold. And what I try to teach them is, yes, and when you don't fit, that's when you become your most attractive self, because you're in your authentic self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think I'm really with, from this conversation, things that we might shy away from or be a bit scared or worried about naming, saying, feeling can be the greatest resources. And if we're willing to really be with what does emerge. So I'm reminded of that through this dialogue.
I appreciate each of you, and there's more to come from all this conversation. It's actually really interesting for me to be in space as a pod, like holding space in the podcast, because I'm like, for some reason, the conversations are always different than how I show up in person. Rebecca, you talked about like technology and how it is. I'm like, what's the way to get that same kind of mojo that just like flows in person in this space here? And so I can't like I really want to say thank you to each of you for showing up and playing the way that you play, and for having the conversation that we have. Like I see each of you like stepping like that have chosen to step out and continue to build in a way that is in alignment with you. Outliers, I have an ask of you. For any of you that are listening to this here, I ask that you share this episode with someone in your world who would really benefit from the conversation that Kathy, Rebecca, and Oliver brought to the table today. You like feel free. We would love it for you to share it on all of your platforms and let the whole world know about this conversation. And underneath that, I have what I call the one person, one conversation at a time initiative. And I really do believe that like the real shifts are going to come if you can use this episode as a gift to someone in your life and say, I heard this and I was thinking about you, and to share this episode with them with intention and with heart and with soul behind it. There's something there where there's like there'll be numbers and we will like that there's one thing, but like the actual impact I think is going to come from one pass at a time, right? That's my hypothesis with this, and I invite you to come and join us in the one person, one conversation at a time initiative. We're going to wrap up this conversation now. And the way that I do it is I want to make sure that outliers know how they can go deeper down the journey with you, as well as to understand, like, if you have an insight or a takeaway that you have from this conversation. And if you don't have any takeaways, like, that's fine. Just let us know. But we wrap it up by sharing how outliers can go deeper down the journey with you and what's one insight that you got from this conversation. Right. Oliver, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, the only one muted. Yeah, it's because my microphone takes up all the noise here. Yes, if you want to know more about me, then it's my show. You can see the name Oliver Schirach. There's another one. He's a banker, but else we're only two so far as I know in the world with my name, the Oliver Schirach Show. It's my podcast, so that's where I'm most active. So you find more about me. And what I took from today, yes, yeah, everything is good the way it is, right? Because I was a bit nervous about what to expect here in the show, and it was nice. And thanks for guiding us through to not overspill with our knowledge and keep it in a bite-sized information podcast. Thank you.
Thanks for playing in the unknown here. It's a little bit hard to have a thing called Outliers Edge and then make everything really, 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 really easy, like really straightforward. I'm like, well, where's the edginess in that? So thanks for leaning in and playing there. Kathy, why don't we come to you? What's an insight you had and how Outliers can continue down the journey with you?
So an insight I have is that outliers are really the people changing the world, because they see where a difference needs to be made and they go in that direction. And to me, that's an outlier. People can find out more about me through my podcast, Dating, Relationships, and Disability, or my website, Radiant Abilities, ABILITIES. I would simply need to spell it out. .com.
Thank you so much, Kathy. It's been a pleasure being in conversation in this space with you. I'm looking forward to what comes from here. All
You
right,
too.
Rebecca, why don't you bring us home? Let us know more about how we can continue down the journey with you and an insight you got from today.
RebeccaO'Rourke.com. You can click, click, click and come on through. Specifically, if you've got a hellish team or group or experience that you want to understand, what's happening in the dynamics, I'm always happy to connect. I'm really with how it's been really useful tonight to it's been a remembering, turn the mind off and be present, and then you're okay. So I appreciate that tonight. Thank you.
I appreciate all of you. Thank you all for trusting me. Thank you for trusting yourselves. I often say before we hit record, got a random email from a random person to come on a random podcast, and I don't give you too much to go with. So I appreciate you, and thank you for actually living what you say. Outliers, we're going to end here for today. Until the next time that we talk, remember this: be you on purpose. Journey on.